but it is Suzanne who I am putting on our It's Your Call hot seat. Because whenever I want to blame the media about something, I look to Suzanne and I say, is it fair? And 9 times out of 10, she says, yes. So in this case, do you think we are glamorizing pregnancy, particularly unwed pregnancy?
I think in this case, the media is to blame. They could pick a dozen different stories or topics to cover, Lynn. They're picking the pregnancy, the bumps, the Angelina Jolies, the Jamie Lee Spears, and they're glamorizing it, and it is selling magazines. So they have found a market that they are exploiting, in my opinion.
You know, it's interesting because this is the magazine cover to which I was referring earlier. She's 17 years old. She's on the cover of OK Magazine, not for her career accomplishments, Bill, but rather for the fact that she's given birth at 17 to baby Maddie. What's this saying?
It says a lot to the American teenager, and I agree with what's just been said. And I believe not only is the media, films like Juno and Knocked Up that are glamorizing, you know, selling magazines, but I believe that American young men, here is not a revelation, American young men are out of control. We have had a generation of absentee fathers in our homes. 23 million children will go to bed in a home without dad. Where do young boys learn self-control? They learn it from dad. So we have a generation of young men that are sexually out of control, and this has been going on for a while. And they, American men, are contributing to this lunacy.
Well, you know, it's interesting. He talks about children going to bed without the fathers. Well, the fathers went to bed with somebody, Ann.
Yes.
Right.
And, you know, and you know, we're left with the end result.
And the fact is that we've had teenage pregnancy, you know, forever. So I don't think it is all the media's fault. I think that society as a whole has to believe and understand the research. And the data says 50% of teens in 9th grade are having sex. And so I say to the teens in my program that if you're not planning not to have a baby, that means you're planning to have a baby.
So can we go back to that number again? Because it just took my breath away. How many 9th graders are having sex?
47.3 to be exact. Let's call that 50%.
Are having
That's what
sex
CDC,
in the
Youth
9th
Risk
grade.
Behavior Surveys, most recent data says.
Kim, what does that tell us?
Sure. Well, in 2004, it was actually in the favor of abstinence, but it was just above 50%. And I think that number does fluctuate. And I think Ann and I would agree on many things. But what I think this is indicative of is a root problem in our culture where sexuality is so distorted. And what Generation Life works to do is to give them even the bigger picture about our sexuality, the power, how awesome it is, and that there is a natural consequence, which will definitely be bonding to another human being, no matter what else happens. You're always going to be bonded to this other human being because you've shared so much intimacy in the deepest part of yourself, and then potentially pregnancy.
You know, it's interesting because a couple of years ago, we did a show here about how celebrities were influencing young people with, you know, with their style and their statements and where they stood politically.
Clothing, hair, the whole
that
thing.
kind of thing. And we talked a little bit about that. Now it seems like, you know, they're out there and they're advocating pregnancy and intimacy, as you said, but without the benefit of marriage. Why, as a nation, do we accept
Well,
that?
I think it goes back to the sexual revolution. You know, my good friend Gloria Steinem said that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. And I think that this continues to go on here 40 years later where, you know, you look at how the media portrays fathers, Lynn, and fathers are basically out of the question right now. In fact, Senator Obama, my good friend, has really taken it right below the waterline. He's talking about responsibility, and yet he's getting flamed by people like Jesse Jackson and other good friends. So I think we need to come back to, yeah, I think we need to come back to responsibility. I think we need to come back to, as created in the image and likeness of God, that men need to be responsible for their behavior, bottom line.
All right, on that note, I do have to take a quick break. We have to take a quick break, but we want to know who you think is to blame for our society's teen pregnancy epidemic, if in fact you think it's an epidemic.